Following the Global Series, the schedule does not get any easier. What can the Dallas Stars do to find more consistency with their line combinations? And some more updates on Tyler Seguin.
You're Locked On Stars, your daily podcast on the Dallas Stars. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Howdy, Stars fans. I'm Joey Erickson, former producer of 105 Through the Fan. Please be sure to subscribe. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. And as always, thank you so much for making us a part of your day and making us your first listen. Welcome to a Tuesday edition of Locked On Stars, coming to you live from the Amarillo Civic Center. A busy 2 weeks on the road for me, but I'm ready to chop it up about some Dallas Stars hockey, including the rest of November for the Dallas Stars. A lot of tough road games. How will the Stars handle this next stretch of games? Plus, where the Stars can find some more consistency with their line combinations. I do have a couple of suggestions there, and then we'll wrap it up with some more transactions and updates on Tyler Seguin, who is still dealing with a lower body injury. Please hit the subscribe button, drop a like, drop a comment, hit the notification bell. Never miss an episode of Locked On Stars. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. So I've hinted at this next stretch of games for the Dallas Stars recently on a few episodes, but the schedule really does not get any easier for the Stars after having to play the defending Stanley Cup champions a couple of times in Finland and dropping all 4 points at the hands of the Panthers. Now they get set to play 11 games in 23 games with the amount of time off they've had on the front end of the trip before the NHL Global Series and the back end. Stars have to play a lot of games. It's going to be a condensed schedule down the stretch, and that also includes the few weeks the whole league has to stop for the Four Nations face-off. So there's a lot of breaks mixed in this season, which means the Stars are going to play a lot of games within a short amount of time. And in November, their next 11 games will be within 23 days, and they have some tough competition coming to town and on the road more specifically. If you look at all the Saturday games here the rest of the way in November, you got Winnipeg on the road, you got Minnesota on the road, and Tampa Bay. And the Lightning has been a little place of horrors recently, even though they did have a very, very good game against Tampa Bay. They actually blew them out of the water. I want to say that was at home. It was like an 8-1 victory. That could have been on the road. Minnesota's a place that's proved fruitful over the last few seasons, but Kirill Kaprizov has that Wild team off and running. They're 8-1-2 as we stand right now, 18 points. The Jets and Wild are both two of the top 3 teams in the National Hockey League right now. So the top of the Central Division is very, very good. And you can't forget about Colorado, who's starting to get healthy. Val Nichushkin is practicing now. Looks like Arturi Lehkonen, is going to be back soon as well. So you have to imagine Colorado is going to get their act together as well. And the Stars have a date with the Avalanche at home to end the month of November. But if you look at the playoff teams, or at least teams we think that are going to be in the postseason, you have Winnipeg, Boston, Minnesota, Tampa, Carolina, and Colorado. You do have some teams that are still rebuilding, like San Jose and Anaheim, but the Blackhawks are always a tough play, and that's who they take on Thursday. Pittsburgh is always going to give you fits with Crosby and Malkin, and the Stars got a little taste of that last season when they traveled to Pittsburgh. So this next few weeks of November, I think, is going to be really, really huge and massive for the Stars, especially after this trip to Finland. How will they respond after dropping both games? They have a lot of questions to ask themselves, especially when it comes to their offense and their line combinations. Just there really hasn't been a whole lot of consistency, which is frustrating because coming into the season, we felt like that wasn't going to be a huge issue. And even early on, the Stars were scoring enough, but it's sort of tapered off, and we just haven't quite seen that offensive power we really thought we were going to get right off the hop. And maybe it's all the new bodies and all the new faces they're kind of throwing into place here, but at some point that can't be an issue or an excuse anymore. We're just over a month into the season and a dozen games, but they have to start to figure some things out. And there are some disappointing players, I think, that have contributed to some of the lack of success. Look, Miro is a guy that you all know I love, but I don't think he's been very good, at least by his standards, in really all the facets of his game. And that includes his offensive prowess. It includes his defensive game. I don't think he's been great in his own zone. He leads the Stars in giveaways this season. I don't think he's been particularly great, even though he's started to put together some better games recently. Harley's another guy I'm hoping is going to continue to elevate his play. I just think number 4 and 55 need to start elevating the players around themselves. And I think you can also point to players like Roope Hintz and Jason Robertson, right? Roope has now played over 400 games, and I would like to see more out of him, right? I mean, he's got 8 points in 11 games, which is nothing to scoff at, but, he's a dash too. When's the last time that Roope has been a dash, right? I know plus minus isn't the best way to sort of characterize a player, but, his last 5 games, he just has 1 goal, and we really haven't seen that burst from him a whole lot. He had a good game in Boston, but that's really the only game that I can really recall where I felt like Roope was really dictating the play. And along with Robertson too, I think there's a lot of guys you could point to that have to do more. Matt Duchene has 11 points he's got 15, now. He's leading the Stars. Like, I don't know if that's necessarily a good thing. Hopefully, as the season wears along, the offense will start to find a rhythm, and I think that's going to come with the line combinations as well. Pete DeBoer is obviously trying to shuffle some things together. Mavrik Bourque starting to find his game and look more confident. I think that will really help because he can sort of slide into that line with Wyatt Johnston and Jamie Benn that have gotten off to a slow start. And I'll point to some of the numbers here in just a moment. When you look at some of the advanced numbers like expected goals for and all that, like there's some surprising numbers when it comes to these offensive trios that we really did not foresee happening this early on in the season. I thought a lot of the questions had to do with the defense, but you look at the Stars' defensive game, and heading into that series against Florida, they were the best team in terms of goal suppression in the NHL, but they ran into a very, very good offense, and Barkov and Reinhart, who made them pay and exploited them for some of their lapses. But I wouldn't say it was necessarily Dallas's. I wouldn't put it on the Stars' defensive systems. I would put it on more. They just didn't really show up for a lot of those 2 games. And Matt Duchene had a quote after Saturday's loss where, when we're on the details, we're a very, very good team. When we're not on our details, we're just a good team. And they have to be more consistent with that. And I think that's just what we're looking for out of the Stars in general. And maybe the trip to Finland didn't come at a great time. I thought Dallas was starting to play better heading into that trip, ended it with a win against Chicago, and then they had to sit for 7 days. That probably wasn't the best case for a team that was starting to play better, because they got off to that pretty slowish start, and they were sluggish at some points. But that's something you expect coming into a season. And it felt like that first game against Florida was almost like game number 1 again, game 1 of 82, because that's such a long layoff. And now they got to wait another, 5-6 days before they take on Chicago again. So I'm really curious to see how Dallas is going to play on Thursday after another long layoff. And maybe this was just not a good time for the trip, but hey, it was something they wanted to be in and they wanted to participate in, so that's what they did. They're going to have to figure it out. And the Stars are a very, very good team, not necessarily worried about where they are going to be at the end of the month, but you do have some tough road games, and they haven't been necessarily, unbeatable on the road. They're 2-3 in their first 5 games. They dropped to Washington and they dropped to Buffalo, which are 2 games you thought you could have won, or very winnable games at the very least, but the power play was not doing them any favors up to that point. So a lot of work to be done, and I feel pessimistic and a bit negative here, and I hate to be that way, since the Stars are 7-4 through the first 11. They're top 10 in the NHL in terms of points. They haven't dropped off by any stretch of the imagination, but you play teams like Florida and you do get humbled a bit, I think, where you feel like, Dallas is in a good spot. It's like, okay, there's another level to get to, and they're just not there. And I said this a lot coming into the season, that I did not think Dallas is a true Stanley Cup contender with the way they're constructed right now. And maybe that's a bit harsh. They're maybe just a piece away, but you play teams like Florida and you go, yeah, I don't think they're up to that level. And, if they played a better 60 minutes in both of those games, we may be having a different discussion. And I realized that, because when they were on it, I mean, it was pretty even. It was some good hockey, and, the Stars were keeping pace, but it's when Dallas isn't at their best. And sometimes you have to judge teams on that. What can you do when you're not at your best? Can you win games? Can you find a way? And I wouldn't say Florida was at their best in both of those games, and they won both games. And one of them was very handedly. So I think there is some of that outlook on the Stars at this point. It's like, well, when they're not their best, they haven't won a ton. But then again, we're a dozen games into this thing. So we're going to take everything with a grain of salt, and the Stars will get back on the track on Thursday against Chicago. But a lot of good teams the Stars are running into. I think it's going to be a great rest of November, and you can't even count the Ducks in San Jose out with the way the Stars have played them over the last few years. Those have been some of the more exciting games, actually, in recent memory. So there you go. The rest of the November schedule is going to be a toughie. 11 games in 23 days for the Dallas Stars. Okay, we've hinted at it. Let's really dive into it. I have some suggestions on some line combinations. Stars need more consistency, and I want to share with you some of the numbers, advanced numbers of the line trios up to this point, and we'll do that in just a moment. Today's episode of Locked On Stars is brought to you by Indeed. We're driven by the search for better, but when it comes to hiring, the best way to search for a candidate isn't to search at all. Don't search, match with Indeed. If you need to hire, you need Indeed. It's your matching and hiring platform with over 350 million global monthly visitors, according to Indeed data, and a matching engine that helps you find quality candidates fast. Ditch the busy work. Use Indeed for scheduling, screening, and messaging so you can connect with candidates faster. Go ahead and join more than 3.5 million businesses worldwide that use Indeed to hire great talent fast. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/lockedon. Just go to Indeed.com/lockedon right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/lockedon. Need to hire? You need Indeed. Today's episode is also brought to you by FanDuel. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com or join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Get in on the action this weekend. That's FanDuel.com Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Some of the numbers for the trios this season offensively for the Dallas Stars are not alarming by any means, but I think it causes you to almost adjust the way you thought coming into this season up to this point, because the top line, right? Robertson, Hintz, and Johnston. That was a line a lot of us were looking at, including myself, as a line that was just going to just take over the NHL this season, really restore what we saw with Roope, Robo, and Pav for a few seasons. And that really hasn't been the case. If you look at the expected goals per 60 minutes for some of the line combinations for head coach Pete DeBoer, right? Marchment, Duchene, and Seguin, 3.32. That leads the Stars. That leads the Stars up to this point in time. And that's not necessarily a surprise. Like, that line has been very, very productive. Seguin has 5 goals. Duchene has 7. Marchment has a couple and 8 points to go along in his first 11 games, right? Marchment, Seguin, Duchene, 3 are top 4 scorers up at this point in time, which is almost appalling to me with what we saw from Wyatt Johnston, like, and Robo especially. And yes, I know they have missed some camp, but at some point they have to find a way to just be more consistent, especially that top line. And I hinted to it earlier, like, there hasn't been a lot of Roope and Robo, like that connection especially. They just don't seem to be that dynamic duo you would really hope the Stars would have and sort of solidify this year. And they've tried to switch him up. We saw Ben on that top line, and I didn't like that. You know, Dodonov is someone I feel like DeBoer has to give a serious look at almost throwing on that top line. He seems to sort of make every line a bit better. I think he gives the Stars, or whatever line he's on, an element of separation or the ability to stretch the ice with his speed and just his awareness. I think his IQ is really top notch. Like, he just is able to find space for himself, and I think that helps others. We saw him with Marchment and Duchene when Tyler Seguin was out. And that line, again, you look at that line, I know they've only played 23 minutes. Marchment, Duchene, Dodonov, the second most expected goals per 60 minutes. Like, whatever line Duchene and Marchment are on seem to be the line that is productive. And Robertson, Hintz, and Stankoven are right behind them. So I don't want to forget about them, because I think that's the top line the Stars just have to roll with. And I think DeBoer, for as much as I like him trying to shuffle some things around, needs to be a bit more stubborn with his lines. Like, let this gel and see if we can find some chemistry, because they didn't get a lot of that time during camp, as he points out. So let them try to find it here for the next few weeks. Bourque is playing better. I think you stick him on that line with Johnston and Ben and let them find it, because I think that's going to be a really, really dangerous line for you and could be the difference maker for the Stars down the stretch, where that's like your third line, and they could be one of the best scoring lines for the Stars. But, you know, as much as I love Duchene and Marchment just lighting the world up along with Tyler Seguin, you know, Sagan's not always healthy. Sagan's body is beat up. Like, you need multiple lines that can carry the offensive load and not just spurts of it. I think they need to be more consistent, especially at 5-on-5, and on the power play for that matter. Like, you know, Robo and Roope haven't done a whole lot in terms of their power play. Look, Duchene has 4 power play points, power play assists, excuse me. That leads the Stars. And, you know, as much as I like Duchene, when I think of the Stars power play units, Duchene is probably the 6th guy I'm thinking of when it comes to the Dallas Stars power play. I'm thinking Mira, I'm thinking Robo, I'm thinking Johnston, I'm thinking Roope, and then maybe I got Duchene. Like, he's like my 5th or 6th guy. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. The Stars have a ton of depth, and they are showing it as well. But, Dallas has sort of run into this in years past in the postseason. Sometimes your best players have to be better than the other teams. The series against Florida, Barkov, Reinhart, clearly better than Miro, Roope, yada, 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 right? And that series against Colorado, Makar was not as good as Miro in that series. McKinnon's McKinnon, but I think the Stars' depth and some of their better players played better in that series in Colorado. And, of course, Nichushkin had a lot to do with that. But in that series against Vegas even, I know Eichel and Marchessault had a decent series, but, Seguin, Miro, Robo all had very, very productive series. And as much as you want to lean on that depth, it gets talked about all the time, like your best players have to be your best players. And that hasn't always been the case in the last few years with Dallas. And I know we tout and we boast about the depth the Stars have, but man, I need to see Robo and Roope just take over games. Like it feels like they have to. And maybe I'm a bit off my rocker and out to lunch. That's just not the type of players they're going to be, because Dallas does have all these weapons they can utilize. But, maybe DeBoer needs to, start playing Roope and Robo near 20 minutes a game. And I know they already play a ton. If you look at the average time on ice this season, in terms of Stars forward, Stankoven is playing over 15. Duchene's playing over 16 a night. Ropo's under 18. Johnson's actually playing the most among forwards around over 19, and I know he gets power play time and some PK time, but maybe he needs to start riding the big dogs a bit more. And I'm not talking McDavid, 23, 25 minutes a night, and maybe this is a bit premature because we are just over a month into this thing, and it's like, okay, just let some things figure itself out. And I think there is an element to that, but boy, there's some questions that need to be answered. And I think the Stars need to play with more consistent lines. Leave Stankoven on that top line. Bourque, I think, is ready. Have him with Johnston. He doesn't have to take as many faceoffs. He doesn't have to be that center where he's taking a lot of draws. Johnston can be that guy. And I think you're going to see the Stars start to roll a bit more. Hopefully that starts to come to fruition in the month of November. I know I'm just all over the place, but sort of thinking out loud here. And I just feel like Duchene, that line should not be, leading the Stars. Maybe that's just me being a hater. But it's like, okay, where's Roope and Robo a bit? I feel like I'm waiting for those guys to kind of take charge. So that's where I stand on it. Okay. That's where I stand. Okay. Some more transactions the Stars have made early this week. Did have an update on Tyler Seguin, who did join the optional practice today. So some good news there. We'll do that and discuss more in just a moment. Today's episode of Locked On Stars is brought to you by PrizePicks. PrizePicks is the best place to get real money sports action. With over 10 million members and billions of dollars in award winnings, PrizePicks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. Run your game all season long on PrizePicks. It's available on your smartphone, free and available on the Google Play Store and the App Store. I downloaded it on mine, and you can get in on whatever you would like, whatever your imagination wants. Hockey, football, soccer, you name it, they have it on PrizePicks. And the best thing is right now, Locked On is giving you $50 instantly when you download the app today and use code LOCKEDONNHL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. You can pick things like Nathan McKinnon for more than half a goal, David Pastrnak for more than 2.5 shots on goal. Those are the type of bets you can make, and you can win money. Download the app today. Use the code LOCKEDONNHL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. You don't even have to win. So use the code LOCKEDONNHL. PrizePicks, run your game. So just a few quick updates for you here before we get out of here on a Tuesday on Locked On Stars. Once again, I apologize if the audio's a bit wonky here. I'm in a very, very big room, and sort of what I have to deal with why I'm on the road recently, but appreciate all the love and support, especially on the recent videos. Hope you enjoyed the crossover with Locked On Panthers last week ahead of the NHL Global Series. It's been a lot of fun, and I look forward to doing more crossovers this season when we play certain opponents. And I really enjoyed talking to Armando over at Locked On Panthers, since it's a team that, I usually wouldn't get together with because Stars and Panthers aren't the same division, same conference, and all that good stuff. But it was a lot of fun to catch up with him and get his perspective on things from the defending Stanley Cup champs. Anyways, from a Stars perspective, Tyler Seguin was at practice at the optional skate. Sam Nessler, the wonderful friend of the show, says Seguin is dealing and managing a lower body injury. Pete DeBoer mentioned that the injury gets worse when Seguin plays in back-to-backs, which is not a surprise. He continues to be banged up, and it's just unfortunate with how productive he has been. I've sort of beaten the dead horse on that one. But at this point in time with Seguin, I don't think he should ever play a back-to-back at this point. Keep him healthy, and I know this is a bit NBA-ish, but you need Seguin healthy, or at least as healthy as he can be for the playoffs. And I know they're trying to win games and they're trying to stack points, but I'm sorry, Dallas should be able to win games without Tyler Seguin. They should be able to win enough games. It's important for Seguin to be healthy in the postseason, or as healthy as he can be. It's great that he's scoring. It's great that he's still contributing, but I need 5 to 10 goals in the playoffs from Tyler Seguin, a lot more than I need 25 from him in the regular season. I kind of felt like that way with Pav over the past few years, where it's like, okay, it's fantastic that Pav is near a point a game in the regular season, but he needs to be a big factor in the postseason. And he was the first few years he was there. Father Time caught up with him last, and he was frankly irrelevant and in each game, which was sort of sad to see because of how great of a regular season he did have. But Seguin is expected to play on Thursday. But with what DeBoer is saying here about Seguin and what he's really going through in the flare-ups, he needs a few more off days at this point. He doesn't need to play 75 games. Maybe the sweet spot for him is around 60, right? Sort of how they manage Otter. Maybe they could kind of put him on that sort of schedule. And I know it's the NHL, and this is not how players view it. And I know coaching staffs don't view it this way either, especially Seguin. I know he would never ask for a day off if he doesn't think he can play. I know that's the type of player and leader he is. But think of the bigger picture. And, Seguin's still on the hook for a couple more years, right? It's not Jamie Benn or his contract's ending. Seguin needs to, he's going to have to play a few more years. Otherwise, you're just kind of, eating dead money there. So the more healthy he can be, I think it's better for the Stars at this point in time. So that's sort of my soliloquy on Seguin there. Kyle Capobianco was loaned back to Texas. He was in Finland with the Stars in case anything happened there. Officially, he was loaned back. Magnus Hellberg, who was the third goaltender for Dallas in Finland, was also sent back to Texas at Cedar Park. So those are some more transactions early this week as we're waiting for the Stars to get back in action on a Thursday. I'll be honest, I cannot wait for that. Feel like there hasn't been a whole lot to discuss here over the last few days after the NHL Global Series. It's been pretty quiet around the Dallas Stars front. So I'm ready for the games to get back in action, and we can start breaking down some more games rather than just all these off days. But, that comes with the territory here with the Stars this season. Okay, that does it for me. I hope You have a wonderful rest of your day. Hope you enjoyed the rest of your week. Again, appreciate all the love and support. Please drop a comment, drop a like, hit the subscribe button. We're almost to 3,500 subscribers. Can you believe that? I'm going to look at it right now on my phone. 3,315. We can do that. We can get to 3,500 before the end of November. So smash the subscribe button. I really appreciate that. And that'll do it for Tuesday edition of Locked On Stars. We'll see you tomorrow. We'll talk some more Stars hockey. Have a great rest of your day. So long, Stars fans.